And we're live here with Cub Swanson, the latest addition to the Onnit family. It's been a real pleasure having you out, man, and welcome to the Onnit Podcast.
I'm happy to be here. I'm really blessed to be a part of this and having a good time here in Austin.
Right on, man. So, if a lot of people are like me, they look at you and they look at that intimidating walk you do right before where you're just kind of looking down at your opponent like a total gangster. And they probably think this guy looks like just a gangster out there, But then, to my surprise, I always heard that you're a great guy, and I knew that. So it was one of the reasons why we wanted to work together. I talked to Michelle Watterson, who obviously trains with you and speaks very highly. So I knew that. But what I didn't know is how much of a thinking man's fighter you are and how you analyze the fight game. And it's been completely fascinating. I've been around a lot of the best fighters in the game, and just listening to the way you analyze fights and think about it has been a real treat for me. And I think it'll be a treat for some of our listeners as well, because you truly are a mastermind of the art of fighting. And people wouldn't know that necessarily just by judging the book by its cover, which is a scary thought. Actually terrifying.
Was that a compliment?
I think it was, Cub.
No,
I think it was.
Appreciate it. That's because that's me. That's my personal side of the fight game. What I let people see is the mean side and the ferocious side of me that I love to get out. When I fight, that's just that everything that I have built up, everything that I got to get out, I let it out on my opponent. And they're big boys that they know what they're getting into. Oh yeah, and
they are trying to do the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I've been training 10 years, and I have had a lot of hardships, a lot of ups and downs, and I just kind of, harness that energy and that pain, and I just try to give it to them.
Yeah, that's an interesting kind of way to think about things, because the training and the lifestyle for a fighter is inevitably going to consist of a lot of pain. I mean, the grappling, the sparring, all of that hurts. The injuries hurt. The dieting hurts. The weight cut hurts. So many aspects of this are painful, let alone what else you might bring in our lives. Our lives contain pain and contain suffering. That is just part of the human condition. They contain love and joy and beauty and great things as well. But you can't escape a certain level of that. And then, so is that something that you really, it sounds like it is, some kind of motivational force for you to just say, okay, I will endure this now, but this will eventually parlay into me being able to use that as a force to propel myself better?
I think that's what makes it great, is being able to just endure for a while to get something great in the end. And that's what, hard work is all about, right? Is putting in the hard work, seeing if it pays off, and that's why I go out there and put on a good performance and try to paint a masterpiece. Like I've said before, it's a thing of beauty. So much pain and suffering. They talk about artists back in the day, just when they describe their painting, they see so much emotion in it. That's the way I like to fight. I'm very emotional, and what I'm feeling, you're gonna feel. And that's the way I like to do it. Whether I win or lose, that doesn't matter to me as much as going out there and fighting just with everything I got.
And it's interesting, when you're fighting, you are certainly, a lot of fighters, it seems like they cut off their emotions as if they're afraid to get too emotional, to get angry, to let some of these things run too wild on themselves. But for you, it's almost like a steady background force where the emotions don't take the driver's seat, but they add a little fuel to the gas tank, which I think is an important distinction.
Yeah.
Is not to let the emotions overrun you, just get consumed by some kind of anger or frustration or all of these other emotions, but let that be kind of an energy source.
Yeah, and that's what I've always told my students back home, and something that I've always done is it's a controlled anger. It's when I'm on the bottom and I'm getting like ground and pounded, I don't freak out and just panic or get pissed off. What I do is in my mind, I'm like, okay, you get this one. I'm gonna work extra hard to get out of this very calmly, save my energy, and when I get on top, you'll feel it. You'll get it back and double. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my mentality. Whatever you're gonna give me, I'm not gonna react, too much. I'm not gonna get angry or panic. I'm gonna take it. Okay, and when it's my turn, you'll see.
Yeah. And that's the analogy for life as well. When times get tough in life, you can either go into despair, you can go into panic, you can let the negative emotions run rampant, or you can look at it and be like, all right, I see you out there, whatever storm is brewing,
Mm-hmm.
do your worst, motherfucker. All right. I'll get tougher, I'll get stronger, I'll feel what you're bringing, and then I'll unleash that in what I'm able to do in my life and my destiny in the world. And so really it's the same thing. If you let that emotions completely run rampant, then you're going to lose. And if you completely shut off and go check yourself out, put yourself in another room, so as if this isn't even happening, well, you're not going to be in the moment, you're not going to be in the present.
Yeah.
And that's not going to help you out either.
No, not at all.
How much is being in the present moment important for you in your fight game?
It's everything, because there is so many things on your mind. Your mind wants to wander because there's so much pressure, and pressure you put on yourself, pressure by friends, family, teammates, coaches. You just want to do well for everybody, and you can't let your mind just kind of play tricks on you, because it wants to. It wants to think about, oh, what are you going to do after this, or what happens if you lose, or you think you saw somebody in the stands, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, you just have to stay focused and know the task at hand. And it's like they say, take it one day at a time. It's like that when you're about to fight. You have to take it one step at a time. First is going out there, getting in the ring or the cage, and doing the fight, being present, and whatever comes after comes after. Win or lose, after party, whatever. That comes later. That means nothing.
At the fight, it's got to be almost 1 second at a time.
Yeah.
Just really just being in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if it's necessarily a distracting thought sometimes, and I'd like to your comments on this, but it seems that, at least for me in competition, there's times where it's not so much a thought. Like, I've had those moments in a basketball game where I am thinking about something else, and that's no good. But there's other times where I'm just not really, I'm kind of on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the ship is driving itself, and I'm not really thinking about anything else, but I'm not in the moment. I'm not exposing myself to the real elements of the present.
Mm-hmm.
The danger of the competition, the aliveness of the whole thing. I just kind of check out, maybe because the pressure was too much. And those games, I fought to try and never be in that, because I realized those games were not my best performances. Even if I was able to do some things right by practice, I wasn't really in it.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't fully alive in that moment. Do you see that in fighting as well?
Oh, definitely. Especially if the fight's not going your way.
Mm-hmm.
You almost kind of want to not be there. You want to check out. And
Yep.
I've heard so many people say it's like a dream, and they're almost watching from above, and they just can't do anything about it. And that's like the worst place to be,
Yep.
when you're just going through the motions, or you're just mentally not there. And it happens to fighters all the time. And, like we talked about, in other sports, you get a chance to do it again the next day and
Yeah.
make better.
Yeah.
But in fighting, we maybe fight 3 times a year if you're lucky, and it's not a much room for error. And
and you pay physical and financial consequences for your loss.
Yeah.
Not only do you make less money on the fight, but it sets back your whole pay structure for a while. There's a lot of pressure on that moment. Plus it's your body.
Yeah.
It's your head that's taking the beating.
Yeah,
We were
exactly.
talking about the Olympics, the Olympic sports, and that comes around once every 4 years, which is even more pressure for that moment to succeed. But it's not like MMA. If someone fails in an ice skating challenge, they'll be okay.
Yeah.
They'll be all right. Maybe skiing is different, because if you crash, there's a hell of a good chance you're going to die.
Yeah.
But
I was thinking about it the other day, just how freely people give you advice, and how everybody gives you advice, and it's not necessarily good advice, but especially like fans give fighters advice. It makes me laugh, because this is a sport where you might really get hurt.
Yeah.
So, like, how dare you give advice when you're not qualified? I know you watch a lot of stuff on TV, and you know what I mean? But, like, you wouldn't give somebody in that, big of a risk situation advice when you know nothing about it.
Right.
You know, I was
Right.
just thinking about it from that aspect.
Right.
It kind of made me laugh. Like, I might get knocked out if I took your advice, bad.
Yeah.
And that has a whole, it affects my family, it affects my pay, it affects many things. And just how freely people want to give you advice. And it's like,
It is funny to think about. I mean, and people don't do that in some of the more, ostensibly dangerous sports. Like, you don't see people giving race car drivers like, man, you really should have punched it more on that corner, dog.
Yeah.
Like, they don't say that to people, but fighters, they do. And they don't say that to, skiers on the downhill in Kitzbühel. Like, yeah, you really should have pushed that, that
you got to bend your knees
there.
more.
Yeah, you got to bend your knees more, when you're going 85 miles an hour on a sheet of ice, with no padding. But yeah, fighters, it does seem to be interesting. It's a good point that you make.
Yeah.
A lot at stake.
Yeah. I think it's just funny because people don't really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think they just want to talk to you sometimes and don't really think about what they're saying.
Well, especially for you, because one of the things I've been most impressed about you is the way that you approach the game itself. We were going through some different stuff on our feet yesterday, and the way that you were talking about controlling your opponent's mind and their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most people, we just think about, and probably a lot of fighters, even still, they're just thinking, okay, here are my weapons. I got fist, knee, foot. I'm going to try and put this on the other person's face, body, leg. Like, that's pretty much it. Or I'm going to try and, take them down. But for you, you're talking about, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to miss this punch 3 times this one specific way, so that I train him to dodge it this other specific way. So by the 4th time that I miss, I know he's going to go there, and then I'm going to knock him out.
Yeah.
And it was terrifying to hear that, to think that, oh, yeah, I'm doing good. Look, he keeps missing me with his right. He keeps missing me to the left side. And, I'm slipping this one, no problem. And you're just patterning him.
Yeah.
You're just waiting.
It's a false sense of security.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So take us through your whole kind of analysis of, you have, some X random fighter, and you're preparing. It gets announced. Okay, they call you up. This is who you got.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the first things you do to start getting ready for an opponent?
First thing I'm gonna do is look up their record, see who they faced, see, how big of a fight it was, where just where they stand in their career. You really want to adjust or assess the situation and see their competition, how they did against them. What styles are bad for them. Then you start to. It takes a while to get tape. So once we do get the tape, I'll watch it by myself, get a good feel, and then I'll take it to each one of my coaches, and I look for patterns. First it's me, because I'm the one who has to go in there, and if you try to tell me a game plan and it's not something that I do on the regular that's I'm comfortable with, then I'm never going to use it, because when the pressure's on, I'm going to go to what I do. So number one, it has to be what I want to do. And then with my coach's influence, they're always going to find things that I like to do, that if they say, oh, maybe you should do this, and I go, that's not really my thing. They go, what about this? Okay, yeah, let's do that. We have to get on the same page. Does that make sense?
And that requires a certain openness and transparency between you and your coaches. I'm sure there must be a lot of fighters who are basically, their coach tells them something. Let's say it's a really well-respected coach, and that coach tells them a game plan, and they don't really believe it themselves, but it's a really well-respected coach. They're trying to be respectful, and so they, okay.
Yeah.
But if they haven't voiced their kind of insecurity about the situation, or their kind of qualms with what that style might do to them, they, like you said, when that heat comes on, they're going to revert back to what they really believe in their heart, because they haven't adopted it. Even if that coach might have been right, still, if they're not 100% on board.
Yeah. I mean, and it depends on the fighter too, because I'm more of a thinking fighter. So I'm out there thinking and really analyzing, where some fighters, they just do, they don't really think, they just throw stuff, and they're just kind of brutes. And that works, and that can be a dangerous fight to take, if someone like me, when I'm trying to impose my will and I'm trying to just mess with them, but they just don't even realize it, and they just move forward and just throw things. it can throw me off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I have to be prepared for everything and see what kind of a fighter they are mentally. And so these are all things I take into consideration. But like I said, going to each coach and talking to them, and I'll see patterns. When each coach that I respect all says the same thing, then that that's
Right.
that you're on the right
You
track.
got independent verification.
Here's one thing that I've always wanted to know. Like, how do you know, like I was watching your video a little bit earlier, how do you know when just you have that open shot and I saw you just knock a mouthpiece just straight out of a guy's face. Like, do you like see that moment in your head and you're just like, this is the shot?
I saw that maybe 6 weeks before my fight.
Okay,
You know,
so
when
you
I
already
watch
saw
tape,
the patterns.
That's a guy you're talking about, Roop. He's a guy who likes to control distance. He's a guy that fights above his what he should be at. He does he uses his body type so well that he's in the UFC. He's not a phenomenal athlete. He's not, the hardest hitter. He doesn't have great skills that kind of make you think he's mind-blowing athlete, But he's very good at using his length and giving you a very hard time and making it an awkward fight and making you uncomfortable. So he's very good at that. And so I kind of assessed it and saw some of his tapes. And so going into the fight, I knew that I needed to get on the inside. I needed to close that gap, but he's very good at getting you away and backing up. So whenever you do get on the inside of him, he pulls his chin back and he'll usually like do an exiting hook if he needs to. So finally he kind of let his guard down in the second round. I was being very patient, and I was able to hit him with a quick jab, and it stunned him, and I was real close. So I threw another jab that didn't mean anything, and he tried to go for that exiting hook to try to get away from me and create space. And right when that happened, I ducked under and threw a power punch.
So you were waiting for that exiting hook.
Yeah.
You knew that was a pattern that he had, and you knew if you put him in an awkward enough situation, he would go to something that was familiar for him.
He would go to his regular routine of how to exit. And when I go into these camps, you're practicing, maybe 4 or 5 scenarios. You're like, this will be it, and one of those will usually work. But when you go into a fight, I'm different than the guy he fought, so he's going to react differently, but not too much. So out of those 5 things that I might prepare for extra, like those finishing moves that I'm looking for, one of them's going to work.
Yeah. So you're just like a quarterback out there, just like analyzing the defense. Same thing you saw on film. You see an opening, you just go for it.
Yeah, and you have to be confident in it because you have a split second to react. You know what I mean? It's
any hesitation on your part.
Yeah. If I hesitate at all, I miss my chance, miss my opportunity.
Small windows. You were talking too about, as people fatigue, sometimes those windows are so tight that even when you get what you want, their timing has to be perfect. And there was a case, I forget which example it was, but you're waiting as he fatigued. I think it might have even been Seaver in that last one. The window just got a little bit wider.
Yeah.
So you had you missed with the technique you were waiting for.
Yeah.
You pattern, missed.
Yeah, with the Seaver fight, yeah. And that was the thing is a guy like that who's just real tough, brute, you got to break him down. You just got to keep chipping away at him. Chip away, and eventually they start to slow down. They start to make some more mistakes, and that window gets a little bigger. And you see those opportunities, and you got to keep enough in your gas tank to be able to pounce on it and really have that killer instinct and going for the kill.
Yeah. You also mentioned too about patterning people's safe zones. So what happens when you apply pressure, how they're going to move, either if they're going to get out by footwork, if they're going to get out by covering up, if they're going to get out by creating distance, grappling, whatever, and preparing for that. That was one of the more terrifying thoughts, because you imagine, because in all the situations, even in sparring, there's points where you get on the defensive unless you're just completely outclassing somebody, if you're with someone good. But to know that the person's not only pressuring you to get there, but waiting for you to get there, so they can destroy you at that point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where they're used to being comfortable, you got to take these lessons that you learn along the road, just like in life. You know, I've had all these great coaches. I've been able to study under Greg Jackson and Eric Paulson and my boxing coach, Joel Diaz, and Winkle John, and just the list goes on. And I've taken little things from all of them. And one of my old coaches, Dave Jansen, it was just, you know, taught me some real basic Muay Thai and taught me how to be tough. That dude just beat us into the ground every day. And if I didn't show up for practice, he would call me and be like, why aren't you here? And I was like scared to death of him. And that guy taught me that there's always points in a fight where both guys kind of mentally acknowledge each other that, okay, we grapple, and then you stand back up, they both take a step back, breathe, and then re-engage. So at that point, fire, because in his mind, it's an acknowledged break. You know, it's okay,
right.
Let's rest for a second and we'll re-engage at the same time. But he would always tell me to attack then, because that's when mentally they're weak and they can get overpowered mentally. So strike when they're not expecting it, you know, because you're supposed to be always ready.
Yeah,
but there are times in the fight where you're like, oh, this is a resting point.
Right.
We both know you're supposed to rest.
Yeah,
it.
After a big exchange on both sides, you know, you see people step back and say, "Oh man, that was good."
And that's from sparring.
Yeah.
In sparring, you spar hard, and say you're doing big gloves and you're doing takedowns. Okay, well, we usually don't grapple with the big gloves because it doesn't make sense. So when I take you down and we hit the ground, it's like, oh, good takedown. We stand up, we kind of bounce around, then we start again. That's a bad habit from sparring. And that happens in the fight. You see it all the time. Guys get up, they reset, and they re-engage. But you can attack that.
Yep. Makes a lot of sense. You know, all of that preparation that you go through, you know, for your opponent, it's funny that people don't do that. It's not as common to see that, not only in sports, but in just life itself. You know, there's a quote by Abraham Lincoln that I like, and he says, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree. I spent the first 4 sharpening my axe." And I love that quote because it shows what a real thinking man is going to do. He could go out there and hack away with a blunt axe, you know, and by brute force take down a tree in a pile of sweat and exhaustion. Or he could hone his axe to a razor sharp point, knowing that the clock's still ticking. That's fine. You know, and knowing that he'll get out there and do the work in 2 hours that would have taken him 6 with a blunt axe.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of your approach, and the approach that I think a lot of people miss. They just want to dive in, whatever it is, whether it's a job application or whatever. You know, I mean, I get, obviously with Onnit's success, I get tons of applications, and we got a lot of great people working here, but I'm always, you know, kind of open. There's no real positions, but I'm open to kind of looking at stuff. But, you know, if someone was going to really, really take the time to prepare, and instead of just throwing it out there like, "Hey, Aubrey, man, I'd really love to work for you." You know, I appreciate that. Thank you. But if someone, and I'm not trying to give advice for me particularly, I'm just using this as an example. But, you know, if someone really took the time to prepare and truly know, like, about our products, about me, totally prepare, and then put together the cover letter that was going to hit the main points for me, that was going to be like, oh, yes, you know, talk about the products, talk about this, talk about what they could bring, how their skills could be of service to Onnit and the greater good, and really take that extra time. Well, they're going to get a lot farther than just kind of, bah, yeah. I'd love it. I'd do anything, you know, I'll do whatever. I'll pack kettlebells on my head. You know, like, I appreciate the enthusiasm, but, you know, if they spend a lot more time sharpening the axe, it's going to get my attention a lot more, because that's the kind of professional that is going to be successful. You know, that person is the one that you got to look out for in any field, because they're going to be the ones that are going to.
It's like a little window to their work ethic.
Yeah, it is. And just the way their mind thinks. You know, the people who gather, think, you know, okay, let me assess this problem before immediately just charging and creating a mess. Yeah. Those are the ones that are dangerous in all things, and dangerous in a good way, in that they're capable of doing amazing things quickly. Yeah.
We're often hit with like, oh, what comes after fighting? You know, what are you going to do after this? I've actually saw a decline in my fighting, the more I thought about it,
Mhm.
what comes next. And obviously with my injuries and things like that, you get forced to answer it, you know. And I don't worry about it anymore because I just know that I just need to find something to when I do stop fighting. It's whatever I have this passion for, because I know that when I'm passionate about something, I'm all in, you know. And that gets me, I feel good about that, you know, because right now I'm just owning this, what I'm doing. I'm trying to live in the moment and keep my options open for what's next. But until I'm done with this, I need that same spirit, you know, the same fighting spirit that I have in fighting, that whatever I pursue next, you know, that's what everybody should have with whatever they do.
Well, the way that you've approached it, you've basically identified, it's like you're a master puzzle solver. And taking that same approach, everything is just a puzzle. You know, if you look at whatever field it was going to be, it could be having a chicken farm. Like if you said, we're going to have Cub's chicken farm, you know, you came to me after fighting and I'm going to raise the best fucking chickens, Aubrey, you've ever seen. I'd be like, absolutely you are. I know you will, you know? And if you had a little bit of that, I want to see a little bit of that passion, like you said. Not that I don't think you're passionate about chickens, but if you were, if I saw that fire, I would know that you would solve it just because of the way you analyze it. You would basically look at, all right, what goes into a chicken farm? All right, so we need to create an ideal environment. We need to look at their feed. We need to look at their care. We need to look at their egg production, what makes them happier chickens to lay more eggs. Whatever it was, I know that you could basically break it down, spend your time sharpening the axe rather than going out, yeah, I got the money. I bought a bunch of chickens. They're all in my yard running around. I'm putting up some fence. We lost a couple to a few badgers, but I think we're all right. We're adjusting. The raccoons won't get in this time. That's the person who I definitely don't want to invest in a chicken farm. But your same methodology that you're applying to that, you can apply to anything else. And there's no doubt that whatever comes next will be a success. And I think that, you know, for me, it's something that's hard for people to do who are in the moment of one thing. You know, your mind wants to wander to these all possible scenarios, but requires a little bit of faith in yourself. If you know your methodology will work, then, you know, relax. Enjoy the ride. If some terrible shit happens, so what? You'll figure something else out. You know, you don't need to go down that windy road where you're trying to sort out all these possible doomsday scenarios, because that's going to suck your joy and passion out of the moment.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Have faith in yourself that you'll figure it out. You did it once before. You know, you became one of the top fighters in the world. You know, you'll figure some other shit out.
Yeah, it's
you
trial
know?
and error.
Yeah,
Learning from your mistakes.
that's
but
it.
So here's like one thing that I've always wondered is like you're this tough fighter. I'm watching videos of you knocking people the hell out, but you're a super calm dude. You're so calm, right?
Yeah,
it's
called terrifying.
It's called terrifying. But, you know, personality-wise, is there a difference in fighters? Because I know we also have these fighters that are real loudmouth, talk a lot of shit all the time. You know, does that personality play a big difference when it comes down to the fight?
Not a lot of champions are that loud.
Yeah.
And, you know, not a lot of champions. It's more of those amateur kind of.
Yeah. The funny thing is all the best fighters that I know are all like super cool dudes, just, you know, relaxed. It's like, I don't got to prove anything.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And I don't want problems with nobody.
There are exceptions.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
going to name names,
Yeah.
but I've personally encountered exceptions where some, you know, fighter who is 230 pounds has like straight up talk shit to me to back me down. Okay, you win.
Yeah.
You know, pro fighter, light heavyweight, former champion. Okay. Like, you're tougher than me. You don't need to be a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's really one individual I'm talking about, but it's rare.
Yeah.
The majority have been just super.
Yeah.
Because they just have nothing to prove.
You know, and it's crazy because, like, it's, you know, you would think in our sport there'd be more of it. And it's really, you know, it's more like the amateur level and guys that they just want to be tough. And they don't really have the sense to really, like, the confidence to know it. But, like, in other sports, I was around some, like, Moto X guys, the guys that, you know, jump bikes.
Yeah.
And someone like the cockiest dudes I ever met. And I was like, you ride a bike. You know, I respect it. I respect
The motor's doing all the work.
Well, yeah, it's just, like, I wouldn't do it. I'd be afraid. But, I mean, it's not like you're the toughest dude in the world. Like, chill out.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, no, I don't know who you are. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't, you know what I mean? But it's not like, I don't know, just the whole sense of people like the you know who I am attitude just drives me nuts.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, I get buddies that are like, don't wait in the back of the line, just walk up to the front. I'm like, why would I do that? That's rude.
Exactly.
You know, like if a bouncer was like at a front and he was like, hey, come up, you know, let me in, I'm not going to say no.
Of course.
You know, because that's pretty cool, you know, but I'm not going to go up and be like, hey, I won't stand in this line. That's ridiculous. You know what I mean? And I just hate that you see athletes get into a lot of trouble because they have this false sense of I'm better than you, because people give them that power and they abuse it, you know. I just think it's terrible.
Yeah.
So one of the things, so we've talked about some of the mental aspects, but we haven't talked about your physical preparation. And we're going to shoot some cool videos today. But you take a dramatically different approach to training than most people too. You've kind of innovated your own ways to best suit your style and the function of your body. So tell us a little bit about kind of some of the training methodologies.
Okay, well, I'm a big fan of, like, when I teach class, I have a hard time running a normal class and saying, okay, this is how you do an arm bar, you know, or let's do the rubber guard.
Speaking of which, Cub is a very high-level black belt, for those of you who don't know.
So, and then I got a guy who's like 260 pounds, you know, and I'm like, oh, you could bend your leg up, just keep trying. It's like
We're working on the go-go plata today,
Yeah.
and he's looking at you like, yeah?
Obviously, I'm lying to the guy, you know, and it's, the thing is, small, you know, flexible, like lanky, flexible guys, I'm going to teach them crazy stuff. And big, strong guys, I'm going to teach them how to use their weight, how to slow the game down, how to get simple submissions where they don't have to move their body too much, you know, just real basics. And that's the key, is knowing your body, what makes you great. I think one thing people they do wrong is, you know, say you're a great wrestler and you want to learn striking or grappling and you work it so much that you stop wrestling, then you went from an above average fighter
You just
to
evened yourself out.
to an average fighter, because you took your best part of your game and you stopped using it.
Yeah.
Now you got to take those tools and make it better.
Yeah.
So
What is your indomitable force?
For me?
No, that's what you got to think. Like, what is my indomitable force? What can I impose that nobody else can stop?
So you have to be honest with yourself and listen to your coaches and multiple people and that you trust, and say, you know, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And, you know, how can I strengthen my weaknesses and make my strengths even stronger? Because that's what's really going to shine. Everyone's like, oh, you got to work your weaknesses. Yes, you do. But you really got to work your strengths and how to make them so good that you can't stop it, like a GSP. You know, I was talking to Dan Hardy the other day. We just randomly met up, but there's 3 keys to a fighter. There's street fighter, martial artist, and an athlete. And I think the greatest fighters have all 3 of those. And not a lot of good fighters have 2, and real average fighters have 1. You know, and GSPs is like somebody who I would say has 2 of those.
Martial artist and athlete.
Yes, but not a street fighter.
Right.
But he succeeds because
he's so fucking good as a martial artist and athlete.
His attention to detail as a martial artist is huge, and he gets his body into shape like you wouldn't believe as an athlete, that he can't be stopped. And he dominates because he took those 2 and he ran with it. Yeah. He tried to be the street fighter and tried to bang it out a few times, and he knows that that's not his strength. Nope. His strength is just doing what he does, and knowing that has made him great. You know what I mean? So that's how I break down fighters. Is, you know, you look at, you know, Nick Diaz. He's an athlete and he's a martial artist, and I wouldn't say he's a triathlete, but he's not really an explosive, you know, pound you athlete. You know, he doesn't have that kill in one punch shot. He's more of a break you down type of fighter.
Yeah, you know, I think that's a really good point, because, you know, as in my job as you know, running Onnit, the goal is to get everybody working in their strength as much as possible. You know, so when building a team or building a group of individuals, the idea is not to get people who can do everything. find people who, sometimes you need a few of those people who are kind of swing people that can kind of help out and whatever, but to make sure that you got people working in their absolute strength, and that strength is, better than anybody else. I think, Martin Luther King, I think, said, if you've got a job to do, make sure you do that job better than anybody else living, undead, or born in the future could ever do, and make sure that you're going to, whatever that, task is, you're going to be impeccable in that thing. And there'll always be a place for that person. For the person who's pretty good at everything, maybe, but outstanding is something.
Yeah.
That means something. There's always room for that individual who's outstanding. So make sure you don't grind away your strengths in order to, build up your weaknesses, because that outstanding quality is what's going to help you succeed.
Yeah, exactly.
In the long term.
And then going back to the how I assess my opponents, everybody's like, oh, you can't let this guy do this to you. You can't, he's really good at this. And a lot of guys are so worried about a guy who has one strength at neutralizing their strength that they only work defense the entire camp. And if you do that, you are going to lose. Unless you get lucky, you're going to lose. You just trained yourself to lose the entire
just working
camp.
Takedown defense against wrestlers for 2 months.
You should be working, because that guy is just as afraid of your strength, if you're at that level. So if you go out there and you're afraid of what he's doing, the guy is going to feel comfortable right off the bat and do what he does. And if you show no fear, even if the fear is there, you show no fear and you fight how you fight, it's going to be evened out, and you might be ahead.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Words for life, words for fighting. Well, man, I think we're about ready to wrap this thing up. Is there anything else you want to share to the Onnit listeners? How have you been? We've only been able to get you access to products here for a minute, but any overall impressions of kind of what you've seen and some of the stuff so far that you can share with everybody?
I'm loving what I'm seeing. You guys are the kind of people I want to surround myself with, just real people. And, I'm just happy to be on board.
Likewise, man. We're happy to have you and looking forward to seeing all of these, how everything plays out. I know it's going to be an exciting ride. Yeah. Anybody who hasn't seen Cub in action, I implore you to kind of go down the YouTube train and see this.
Don't be afraid to take a picture with me if you see me or something. Yeah. I'm pretty approachable. I know I don't look like it.
and just let the guy pass the line. Just let him, please.
Yeah, if you see Cub in a line, people, bring him to the front. He won't ask, but let the man to the front. He's working hard, entertaining us all. Very cool, my friend. Well, I'm excited we're going to get a bunch of videos out. So, you guys keep that posted. Some training techniques, a lot of balance stuff, a lot of reaction stuff, a lot of really unique stuff that fun for us regular hacks to play around with, and really important for some, top athletes to really pay attention to. So we'll get a lot more information out via that way, and we'll keep in touch, man, and we'll be following you closely and, bring you back in here for another podcast after your next W.
I'd love to.
All right. Right on, Cub. Take care. Take care, everybody. And Onnit.